Thank you so very much, Mr. Chairman. As chair of the subcommittee on financial institutions and consumer protection, I'm very concerned about this issue. And I want to make it very clear that I'm going to do everything I can to protect consumers, but especially the most marginalized. Vulnerable people are the ones who are targeted by these loans. And this so-called true lender rule, what a misnomer. There's nothing true about it. It provides an avenue for predatory lenders to partner with banks to peddle harmful short-term loans with triple-digit interest rates, triple digit, in states that have reasonable and often voter-approved caps, like North Carolina, on interest rates to protect consumers. Today, nearly 16,000 payday and auto loan stores operate nationwide. I have seen this up close and firsthand as a pastor in the Auburn Avenue community in Atlanta, Georgia, and in other pastorates. Um, Pastor Haynes, let me begin with you. Uh, we've worked on these issues for years, and I know of your involvement and advocacy. And we often talk about financial predators who take advantage of the poor, our most vulnerable sisters and brothers. In your testimony, you shared some of these lived experiences of many who attend your church, which is predominantly African American. Could you briefly talk about how these rent-a-bank arrangements are affecting both older and younger generations at Friendship West Church and in the surrounding community? And what do you think are the long-term economic and wealth consequences for the consumer?
Thank you for the question, Senator Warnock. As you know, usury is unbiblical, it's immoral, and the reason is because of the damage it does to those who are already economically vulnerable. In the area where I'm blessed to pastor, sadly, within a 3-mile radius, you have in excess of 20 payday loan and car title loan stores. At the same time, we've seen banks vacate that area. And so the payday and car title loan stores become the options that persons have in order to make up for being in an underserved area. And of course, they find themselves in a debt trap, and that debt trap does so much damage to the community. It does damage to the family. And the bottom line is that we're talking about those who are already vulnerable, who live in a community that is underserved and suffers from being disinvested. And so when you combine all of that, and earlier persons were talking about taking away choices from consumers. And yet when the options are predatory, you set them up to make choices that will have consequences that again will do damage to the family and further damage to a community that is already underserved. And Pastor Warnock, you can appreciate this. I just don't want Jesus to say to America in the judgment, I was hungry and you gave me a payday loan through a rent-a-bank scheme.
Thank you so much, Pastor Haynes. And I think it's an important point that you make this assumption about somehow we're providing options when the reality is people are being ghettoized and channeled and marginalized to these inferior loan products that set up a cycle of debt. Ms. Stifler, in your testimony, you noted that these types of lenders disproportionately hit communities of color due to the long history of racial discrimination within housing, banking, lending, and employment, often aided and abetted by some of our government's own policies. In addition to passing the Senate joint resolution to overturn this bad rule, what other actions should our federal regulators take to close this predatory loophole and lessen its impact on vulnerable communities?
Senator Warnock, thank you for the question. Yes, I mean, there are a number of actions that that can be taken at the federal level, whether it's the regulators or you all in Congress. I think one of the key policies that could be pursued is a federal interest rate ceiling, like I mentioned in my testimony. While 18 states plus the District of Columbia have strong interest rate caps on payday loans, and they represent over 115 million people in the country, the rest of the country is at risk to predatory payday loans. So something that the Congress can do and that we support is the federal interest rate cap of 36% or less.
We have to support Senate Joint Resolution 15. This is the start, and there's more work to be done. Thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warnock. Senator Smith from Minnesota is recognized for 5 minutes.